the truth is that nothing is unachievable. I mean, we've seen that with Bad Bunny. He literally 10 years ago was bagging groceries. Now he has won 3 Grammys, including Album of the Year, first ever album to do that in Spanish. And then we saw him at Super Bowl, and he specifically said, the only reason I'm here is because I never stopped believing in myself, and you shouldn't either. Welcome to the Chingona Revolution podcast, where we will bring out your inner badass Latina, overcome self-doubt, help you gain clarity, and pave your own path, all while leading with courage. I am your host, Latina coach and speaker, Erika Cruz. Hello. Welcome back to this week's episode of Chingona Revolution podcast. This week, I want to talk about something that I keep hearing over and over again. And it is this objection around, Erika, you've been talking about personal branding. You've been talking about creating content. You've been talking about showing up. But I feel like it is too late and the market is too saturated. Maybe you have the belief that the time to grow on TikTok has already passed. Or maybe you believe that Instagram is extra saturated and it is just so hard to grow. And unless you started 2 years ago, you're all out of luck. Or maybe you're telling yourself there's already somebody out there who's creating content about financial literacy for women of color, for example. Or maybe you're saying there's already a dating coach for women of color, for Latinas, or there's already a person doing X, Y, and Z, which is what I want to do. Well, all of these are just objections and excuses that are hiding behind fear. And that is the fear of showing up. Your brain is telling you the false belief, it's not even a fact, it's telling you that there's already too many people out there and that there's no point in doing what you're going to do. Can you imagine if I decided I'm not going to start the Chingona Revolution podcast because I already know of 5 Latina podcasters? Or can you imagine if I decided, yeah, I'm just not going to start my program, Courage Driven Latina, because there's already a bunch of Latina coaches out there? I would be depriving hundreds of thousands of listeners of this podcast, the transformation, the stories, the insights that they've gotten by just listening to this podcast. And the over 300 clients that have been through my program would not have experienced the transformation they have. So while our fear is keeping us from showing up, a lot of times when we don't show up, we're depriving the person that could be experiencing our transformation. We are depriving them of transformation. And the most interesting thing is that it's not too late. You're just negotiating with your fear. And a lot of people will call this being realistic. And if you're watching the video of this, I have realistic in quotations. People will tell you that you need to be realistic, or maybe you're telling yourself that you need to be realistic. And the truth is that nothing is unachievable. I mean, we've seen that with Bad Bunny. He literally 10 years ago was bagging groceries. Now he has won 3 Grammys, including Album of the Year, first ever album to do that in Spanish. And then we saw him at Super Bowl. And he specifically said, the only reason I'm here is because I never stopped believing in myself, and you shouldn't either. So this idea of, oh my gosh, let me just be realistic because of all valid reasons, right? Because I maybe have a family, because I have bills to pay. Yeah. Nobody's telling you to go burn your life upside down, right? And just go create content and forget about everything else. Stay at your job. Do all these other things that you're already doing that make you feel safe. But if you have this desire to show up, to create content, but you're telling yourself that it's too late, I invite you to challenge that belief. I invite you to think differently, because trust me, this is from somebody who has grown on social media, and then I was losing followers for the last 2 years instead of growing. And I had this belief as well. I had this belief that nobody cared anymore. It was just too late, that I missed my boat because I didn't stay consistent on TikTok, and that Instagram was just so difficult to grow. And the only time I was really able to grow my Instagram was when my TikTok was growing and people were coming from my TikTok to my Instagram. I mean, I had all the thoughts. And this year I decided that I literally made the decision. I said, This is the year that I really give content creation my all, because when I was consistently creating content, I was connecting with so many amazing people. Opportunities came my way. I would get so many DMs from people saying that that piece of content was exactly what they needed to hear. So this wasn't even coming from this place of like, I want to be the star. It was totally coming from this place of, I know that I have a message to share, and I want to make sure that I don't let my own limiting beliefs get in my way when it comes to sharing. And this idea of being realistic, it usually can show up in many different ways. It shows up in comparison. So maybe you've been following somebody for a while and you're comparing your content to their content, but they're on chapter 30 and you're just on chapter 1. Or maybe you're telling yourself, oh my goodness, I need to have all of this equipment. I need the perfect mic. I need the camera. Well, guess what, friends? I'm recording this podcast episode on my iPhone, and my iPhone is 3 years old at this point. And the quality of the video is well, because it records in 4K. As long as you wipe your lens, that's all you need. I do have a little mic that I got for $99 on Amazon, and I've been using it the entire time that I've had this podcast show. And sometimes when I'm traveling, you know what I use? I just use the wired Apple headphones that go into my computer because it works better than wireless. Start with what you have. Remove any obstacles that stop you from feeling like you're not ready to start just yet. And don't compare your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 15 or 50. That would be like me comparing myself to Mel Robbins or to Jay Shetty, who are people I admire, but I also understand that we're at different stages. They literally have entire productions, production teams supporting them. I'm recording this podcast episode on my iPhone in my childhood room that I moved back into when I wanted to start this business. So I'm letting myself be where I'm at. Another way that this be realistic can show up is through scarcity of like, oh, somebody already followed those people, so they're not going to follow me. Friends, there is enough abundance in the world for us all. Think about how many new people you follow a day. You're probably finding new people to follow every single day. People are consuming content. That's a whole nother topic, whether that's good or bad, right? But people are on social media, and I truly believe that when women of color, when minorities, when individuals who are drawn to this podcast create content, we do make the world a better place, because typically we want to come at it as a form of service. We want to provide value. We want to maybe share the lessons that we've learned. And that is beautiful, and that creates so much impact. And this lack and scarcity mindset stops us from sharing our magic. And, you know, I told you not long ago, I was believing this because I grew pretty quickly on TikTok. I grew on Instagram. And then over the last 2 years, it has been very hard to be consistent. What happened was, I can tell you looking back now what occurred for me. I ended up building a business because of my personal brand, which I'm so grateful for. And then I started running the business. And then the content creation was an afterthought. The content creation was not my priority anymore, because I had all these paying clients that were now waiting on me. I had the content here for the podcast, which is the free version of my content. And I also was figuring out, okay, how do I hire? How do I restructure certain things in my business? How do I do my own accounting? How do I do it? I mean, there's so much to learn when it comes to running a business. And when my business grew so much, I then started working in the business, and I neglected creating new content. I neglected the marketing. I neglected my personal brand, not because I didn't care anymore, because my attention shifted elsewhere. And the end of last year, the end of 2025, I said, nope, this is the year that I create content again, because content used to be so fun for me and I loved doing it. And I'm now making it a priority again. And I did. And I totally dropped the ball in January because I was in Mexico almost the entire month. A lot of stuff happened. A lot of stuff came up for me. And I said I was going to be consistent and post almost every day. I think I posted a total of 8 times. And those 8 times were just like whatever posts. They didn't even do well because it was so just like whatever. Like there was no intention in them. So when I got back from Mexico, it was, I believe, February 2nd, maybe February 3rd. I was walking my dog Paloma on the trail. If you follow me on Instagram, then you see that Paloma and I go to the trail pretty consistently. And I recorded a video that I was going to edit and post that evening. And then I ended up getting busy with other things. But the video pretty much talked about how my goal is to reach 30,000 followers on Instagram. And it's not even for the follower count. It was more that I wanted to prove to myself that I can show up consistently, that I can create content, that I do have the manifestation power to serve and create demand and all of those different things. And I recorded that video and I said, my goal is 30,000. I was currently at 24,000 followers. And I said, this may not seem like a big goal, but when you've been losing followers more than gaining followers, it feels like a stretch goal. And that is why I chose 30,000, because I did believe I could achieve it within this year. And I also was losing a ton of followers. So my belief was low. I was like, nobody cares about my content anymore. I've lost my spark. I don't really know what I'm doing anymore. I mean, I had all the thoughts, and this was just last month. So I made the decision. Like, I was very clear about making the decision. And if you want to create content, you literally have to decide. But what's happening with a lot of you is, you're saying that you need to, that it's too late. That's one of the excuses that's coming up. But the other thing that's coming up for a lot of you is that you haven't actually decided. You're like, I want to. And then you get busy and you're like, I'll get to it later, I guess. Maybe it's not that big of a deal for me. Maybe I don't have to do it just yet. And you're almost negotiating with yourself. But the first step in manifesting is making a decision, deciding that you're going to do it. And I want you to think about a time in your life in which you maybe were struggling with something. And then you finally were like, you know what? I'm going to figure this out. And then how quickly did you figure it out after you made that decision? And it's the same thing with content creation. You have to decide that the market's not saturated. You have somebody who's in the market right now telling you it's not saturated. And you may want to create similar content to mine. And guess what? I need you to do it. I'm not sitting here thinking, oh man, if another Latina goes to go create self-development content and talks about mindfulness, then they're going to take people away from me and I don't want them to come. No, that's not what I believe at all. We live in an abundant world. There are so many people who need to hear your story, your perspective, just like there are so many people who needed to hear mine when I had thoughts about showing up. I hope you are enjoying this podcast episode. I just have one quick message for you. The questions I get over and over are, how were you able to leave your tech job? How did you start your business? How are you able to travel so much? Every time I see your stories, you're traveling somewhere new. And how did you become your own boss and create such a purpose-driven business? These are the common questions that I get over and over. And as I sat to think about the response to these, the answer is that I built my personal brand. None of these things would be possible if I did not begin to build my brand and show up and create content and create impact. Because of that is why I was able to leave my tech job, start my own business. So this is a training that is long overdue. I am teaching you all how I manifested my first 10,000 followers by building my personal brand. This training is happening on Monday, March 9th. FYI, that is daylight savings time. So please add it to your calendar once you sign up. I don't want you to miss it because live is always best, but we will be sending out the replay. So if you sign up and can't make it, don't worry. We'll send you that replay that evening. This training is for you if you've opened up an Instagram account or a TikTok account with all the intention of being super consistent, only to completely ghost the account. Maybe you are somebody who gets these great ideas when you're in the shower or when you're driving, but you have such a hard time taking action on them because you don't feel ready. Maybe you've watched people who you know completely blow up and think, damn, that could have been me if I had just started showing up. Maybe you do know the power of a personal brand, but you're stuck overthinking. You're maybe afraid about what you should post, how you should post it, or what other people might say or think. Maybe you dream of starting a business and you understand that building a personal brand is one of the first steps to doing that. I am going to be teaching you all the mistakes I made because I had 2 failed attempts at building my personal brand before I did it successfully. And then I'm going to share with you the strategies that do work. I can't wait to see you there. Again, it's happening on Monday, March 9th at 5 o'clock Pacific time. Sign up using the link down below. Can't wait to see you there. So let's go back to my story. I'm walking Paloma. I record this video. I make that decision. And a couple of days later, the Grammys occurred. And I decided to share Bad Bunny's speech because he talked about how the only thing more powerful than hate is love. And if we want to fight this fight, we have to do it differently. And we have to do it in a more intelligent way. And pretty much what he was getting at was that, and I think I said this on maybe not last week's episode, but the week before, I don't know, one of the previous episodes I shared this, but you can't find a solution to a problem at the same level of consciousness that you created the problem. So in other words, we can't meet violence with violence and then expect peace. You have to elevate from violence, which what he was saying was go from hate to love, because it's the only thing that's more powerful, and lead with that. And when he said that, I felt like I was reignited. Something reignited in me because I'm a very spiritual person. If you've been following this podcast, you already know this. I truly believe in manifestation. I'm a deep person. I believe in consciousnness. I believe in vibes. I believe in all that different stuff. I believe in energy. And his speech moved something in me energetically where I was in this place of, it's hard for me to show up. All these ICE raids are going on. This is so difficult. And after Bad Bunny's speech, I was like, wait, I get to talk about my community in the way that I want to. And I'm going to talk about it from this place of celebration. And I'm going to demonstrate what it's like to be Latina. And that just switched everything for me. And his speech was so relevant that when I reshared his speech and I added my own thoughts to it, that video ended up blowing up. And then I created another video. I'm like quickly looking up my Instagram here so that I can tell you exactly what I did. And then the next morning, I was feeling so inspired that I ended up sharing a carousel post of all of the different screenshots I had screenshotted over the last 72 hours. And I posted it as a Monday motivational post. And one of them was just what Bad Bunny's quote was, the only thing more powerful than hate is love. And just a lot of relatable stuff. The next one said, I love being brown. Shit kind of dangerous, but it's lit, which I thought was so funny because it is dangerous right now, right? But we're using comedy now. We're using comedy to talk about this. And I started just sharing a lot of relatable stuff and a lot of like celebrating being Latina. So my audience started to pick up a little bit and I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm going to reach my 30,000 followers, I don't know, by like summertime or something. And then I shared a whole carousel about how 10 years ago, Bad Bunny was working in a supermarket, but today he's one of the biggest artists in the world. And this wasn't luck. It was actually manifestation. And here's what we can learn from it. And then it was very informational, very on brand with my type of content. Well, long story short, I went from only posting 8 times in January. And then when February came around, I posted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And it's only February 10th. So that means I was posting like 2 times a day. And this wasn't me hustling. This was me having so much fun with my content and knowing that I wanted to celebrate being Latina. And it just came from this whole different energy. I ended up creating memes on my own in Canva. The memes said things like, so I heard there's a football game at the Bad Bunny concert on Sunday. And just a bunch of different memes around Bad Bunny and the Super Bowl. And that got over 1.7 million views. I've never had anything in the millions on Instagram. And from there, things just took off. Then once Bad Bunny's performance occurred, I added my own thoughts to that. I added some subtitles to it, some closed captions to it. And within 48 hours, I went from having 25,000 followers to 31,000 followers. It's insane how quickly it happened. So I want to break down what occurred. Like, what is it that I did? One, I changed who I was energetically because in January, I was feeling angry. I was feeling this is so unjust. And that's valid, right? Our community definitely has been under attack. The government is not in favor. The government in power is not our ally. We've already been very clear about that. And I was stuck in that energy. And I'm not saying it's not valid. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be mad. I'm not saying that at all. But if there's anything we can take from Bad Bunny, it's that the only thing more powerful than hate is love. And I was like, how can I not worry about them? And he even says this in his Grammy speech. He says, don't we don't hate them, but we do love us. We do love our culture. We do love our people. And I was like, that is the way to transformation, like through unity, through celebrating our culture, through giving back to organizations that are helping immigrants. All of those different ways are so much more effective than being pissed and sharing an Instagram post about how mad I am at the government. Make sense? So one, it was an energetic shift. Two, I decided that I was going to create content. I decided I was going to have fun with it. And I decided that the way I was going to do it was celebrating Latino culture. So those were all the different actions I took. And between those actions, I just kept getting ideas. I even shared an old video of when I went to the Bad Bunny concert in Puerto Rico to the residency, and where I was dancing salsa with this stranger. And that video blew up. It has 36,000 likes. I mean, it feels crazy, but it doesn't feel crazy because I can tell you why this happened. I suddenly was in alignment. And how did I get in alignment? Well, one, energetically, like I just mentioned. Two, I made the decision. And then three, I took action. It wasn't like I made the decision and I just like stayed at home and didn't do anything. As I mentioned, I've already posted 14 times in the time of recording this. It's February 10th. So it's not like I was just hoping around wishing. It is that when you are in the feeling of wanting to create, wanting to serve, and you start with momentum, more momentum leads to more momentum. It's almost like, imagine a little like stone rolling down a hill. The more it goes, the more it goes. And that's kind of what happens. And a lot of us we want to get momentum from nothing. Like we won't even take the first step because maybe you have this belief that it's too late for you to grow. Maybe because you have this belief that there's already too many people out there. Or maybe you're comparing yourself to other people. Or maybe you haven't decided. These are all possible reasons why you haven't taken the first step and gotten started. So what I did, I'm going to share 3 strategy tips that you can implement today. So the first thing I did correctly is that I used something that was culturally relevant and timely. So I jumped, you can even call this a trend, right? Like when you see a trend, whether this is a trend that's happening on social media or just a big pop culture event, like the Grammys, like the Oscars, like, let's see, what else is something big? Like the Super Bowl, right? These are all big events that you know your feed is already going to be full of. So how can you take that existing event or celebrity or thought leader who's in your field and leverage that to get more visibility with your content? I did this with the Grammys, with Bad Bunny, and with the Super Bowl halftime show. I mean, all of them kind of worked together. And then I added my own take to it, right? I talked about how Bad Bunny has actually been manifesting his personal brand, how he started by putting his stuff up on SoundCloud and making himself visible. So that is the first strategy. Always look for pop culture events or big events that are occurring that you know your audience is already going to have on their feed and get in on that. Have your opinion about it. The second strategy I used was shareability. So you want to create content that's shareable. The reason that my memes did so well was because they were easily shareable. And I'll tell you exactly what they were. I mentioned one of them. Okay, the first one is, so I heard there's a football game at the Bad Bunny concert on Sunday. So many people shared that one. The next one says, who are you rooting for in the Super Bowl? And then the next line says, me, Bad Bunny. So many people shared that one as well. Another one I wrote is, I don't understand football, pero entiendo Bad Bunny, which is so funny because the whole talk about Bad Bunny being the Super Bowl halftime artist was that people weren't going to understand him. So I actually flipped it around and I was like, well, I don't understand football, but I sure as hell understand Bad Bunny. And those did so well because they were shareable. That is why the post ended up with more than 1.7 million views. And then last but not least, timing. I was very quick with it. I did not delay. I didn't overthink. I posted Bad Bunny's halftime performance when he talked about the reason I'm at Super Bowl 60 is because I never stopped believing in myself, and I don't think you should stop believing in yourself. That I posted before the game was over, literally 10 minutes after the halftime show. As soon as the NFL posted the video, because they're the ones that capture like the best video, as soon as that I was posted and I was able to capture film, or footage, and I posted that within a few moments of it being over. That is why this went mega, mega viral. So this is where I got most of my followers from. I ended up with 23, I'm still like blown away by these numbers, y'all. 23.4 million views. The amount of likes it has is 1.8 million. That's how many likes it has. How many people followed me from just this? 3,522 people. So those are some of the strategy things that I did. If you want to learn more about my strategy, more around my framework, more about how I grew over 6,000 followers in 48 hours and how I grew my TikTok account from no followers to over 100,000 followers in just 4 months, I am sharing my signature brandifestation method in my next webinar. It's all about how I manifested my first 10K followers by building my personal brand. You don't want to miss it. The link to register is down below. And if you're like, you know what, Erika, I'm making a decision, I am ready, this is something I definitely want to do, then I encourage you to look into my personal branding intensive. That is a 90-minute one-on-one intensive where we work together and I help you identify your niche, your personal brand identity, as well as content types, how to create the content, what content to create, and how to make it more viralable, more shareable. And I have a few more other tips, strategy tips that I would share with you there as well. So I only have 2 spots left for that. It had sold out, but there's been such a big demand. I decided to open up 2 more spots, and you can find the link for that down below as well. Okay, friends, thank you so much for tuning in to Chingona Revolution podcast. If you took anything away from this episode, I encourage you to share it with a friend, and I will see you next week. And I will also see you at my training, which is happening on March 9th at 5 o'clock Pacific time. FYI, that is daylight savings time, so make sure you add it to your calendar. I don't want anybody to miss it because I do have free stuff I'm giving away at the training. All right, y'all. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Make sure to visit theerikacruz.com. That's Erika with a K, where you can subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. You can help this podcast grow by supporting me with an Apple Podcast rate and review. If you took anything away from this episode, I invite you to take a screenshot and share it on social media so that your favorite badass Latinas can also check it out. Be sure to tag me at the Erika Cruz, that's Erika with a K, because you know I want to see it. If you're ready to join the revolution and be a part of the Courage Driven Latina community, visit couragedrivenlatina.com to get more information and join the waitlist. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.